Hey, what's up everybody? Eternal Fire here, and today we're going to be doing a complete Prot Warrior guide for the Shadowlands pre-patch. In this video, we will cover new and existing abilities in the Spellbook, stat priorities for your Prot Warrior, talent builds, Essence and Azerite as they are still active in the pre-patch, and finally spell priorities or rotation. If you are here for a specific segment of the video, please check the description below for timestamps. But first, if you like this content, consider becoming a member of my channel by clicking the join button, aka it's Twitch subscribe for YouTubers. Any support is appreciated. With that, let's get started. We're going to start with the Spellbook, and you'll notice that you have a new tab. You have a Warrior tab and a Protection tab. So Warrior is class specific, where Arms, Fury, Prot, they all have the abilities in this tab, where Prot is just for Prot. So first thing, we're going to start in the Warrior tab. You have Battle Shout, increases attack power by 5% for 1 hour. So you're just going to always want to have this up. Berserker Rage breaks fear or sap immunity effects. Charge. So this is something that's kind of, it's not new, but it's new again. Charge is what you use to charge an enemy, and it generates 20 rage. And then Intervene, which is what Prot had as a charge previously, is now what Intervene was originally. Okay, meaning use charge to charge an enemy, Intervene intercepts an ally who's about to take damage or taking damage, and it helps take some of the damage for them. Execute is actually really fun now, and basically once your enemy is 20% health or lower, you can use Execute. It costs 20 to 40 rage, and it does a lot of damage, especially if you get a crit. Man, does it do a lot of damage. So basically this will become your rage dump when like a boss or an enemy is 20% health or lower. This will be what you dump your rage on if you don't need to be using things to survive. If you don't need to be spending rage to survive, you can have fun just spamming Execute, and it is quite fun in my opinion. Hamstring slows a single target for 15 seconds by 50%. Heroic Leap, that's Heroic Leap. Heroic Throw throws your enemy weapon at an enemy doing a very small amount of damage, but the key thing here is there's no cooldown and it generates high threat. So when you're kiting a target, you can just spam Heroic Throw at them while staying out of arm's reach and be continuing to build threat and keep threat on them while your DPS are potentially chasing behind him, doing damage while you kite. Ignore Pain is one of your two active mitigation abilities. Fight through the pain, ignoring 50% of the damage taken up to X amount of damage prevented. So this is huge. This is one of two. You have Shield Block, you have Ignore Pain. Shield Block, which is right here, costs 30 rage. You raise your shield, blocking all melee attacks against you for 6 seconds. These blocks can be critical blocks, meaning you just block for more. Increases shield slam damage by 30% while active. So while it's up, your shield slam, which we'll get to that. But Shield Block and Ignore Pain are your primary active mitigation. Shield Block is purely physical melee damage. Ignore Pain is everything. So it doesn't matter if you're taking magic damage, bleeding damage, physical damage. This is going to help reduce the amount of damage that you're actually taking to your health pool, right? And then Shield Block is just melee damage. So, I mean, Shield Block, that is huge. You want to try to always have these going if you're taking damage, right? You want to always try to have Shield Block up as much as you can, and you want to be using Ignore Pain whenever you can. So those are going to be what you're dumping your rage on primarily. Intervene, we talked about. Intimidating Shout is a fear, and it makes targets flee for 8 seconds. Or 5 targets flee for 8 seconds. Now this is really bad because they're going to flee and they're going to run into enemy packs like in a Mythic Plus dungeon, and you're going to pull enemies that you didn't want to pull, and then you're going to die. Interestingly enough, however, we now have a talent called Menace. Intimidating Shout will knock back all nearby enemies except your primary target and cause them to all cower and feel for 15 seconds instead of fleeing. Now, again, instead of them running away, you're purposefully knocking them away, except for your primary target, who's just going to cower in front of you. So that sounds really bad, right? Well, yes, but no. So in niche situations like Sanguine, I used it in Sanguine today. There was casters in the Sanguine, and for Prot Warrior, it's very difficult to manage getting them out if you don't have your interrupt up. So what I did was I targeted one of the mobs that was not in the Sanguine because he's not going to get knocked back, and I used my Intimidating Shout, which knocked everybody else that was in the Sanguine out of it. So it was really cool there, and I was able to, get creative and use my options, in a creative way that made the dungeon experience a little bit better for our group. Pummel is your single target interrupt on a 15-second cooldown. Rally Cry is basically a last stand for your party, just at a reduced strength. It increases everybody in your party's health by 15% temporarily for 10 seconds. So if everybody's getting really low, everybody's taking constant, ticking damage or whatever, you can pop Rally Cry and it will increase their health and help, the healer catch up. Shatter Throw. You throw your weapon. It's a 3-minute cooldown, 1.5 second cast, which is pretty rare for a warrior. You throw it at their bubble. So if an enemy has a bubble or some sort of absorb damage, you can throw it and break it. So that's going to be very select situations where you're going to need to use that spell. Shield Block, we talked about Shield Block, but to go deeper into it now, you have 2 charges of it. Its cooldown is reduced by the amount of haste you have, and like I said before, increases Shield Slam damage by 30% while active. Okay, so again, Ignore Pain, Shield Block, your 2 main active mitigations. You want to try to have them up as much as possible, depending on your situation, but 99.9% of the time you're going to want to have those things up. So Shield Slam. Shield Slam is your primary rage generator. So it's on a 7.1 second cooldown, reduced by haste. Slams your target with your shield, causing physical damage. Devastate, Thunderclap, Revenge, and Execute have a 30% chance to reset the cooldown of Shield Slam. So that's really huge. This you want to use on cooldown. If it comes off cooldown and it hasn't procced, use it immediately. If it procs, use it immediately. Spell Reflect, raise your shield, reflecting spells, and also reducing magical damage you take by 20% last 5 seconds or until you reflect a spell. So if you see an enemy casting, like let's say a Warlock with a Chaos Bolt, and they're targeting you and they're about to cast their Chaos Bolt, you can pop Spell Reflect and throw that Chaos Bolt right back at them. Or if you're taking constant magic damage from some ability, you can simply pop Spell Reflect to help reduce the amount of damage that you're taking for 5 seconds. Taunt taunts the target, making them attack you. Victory Rush, after you kill a target, you can, if you get the killing blow on a target, you can heal yourself on the next target that you're hitting for 20% of your max health. Whirlwind is an AoE ability that at this time I can't find any reason to use it over Revenge. Moving into our prot tab, we have Avatar, increases your damage by 20%, and it also removes all roots and snares. If you have any currently. Generates 20 rage, so that's nice on a 1.1 minute cooldown. But that's also because I have Vision and Perfection, which is an essence, and we'll get to that. So this is your primary damage DPS cooldown. Demoralizing Shout demoralizes all enemies within 10 yards, reducing the damage they deal to you by 20% for 8 seconds. So this is a damage reduction, survivability cooldown. And when we're using Booming Voice, it also gives us a 40 rage generation and increases the damage that you deal. So it's like a 2-for-1. Demoralizing Shout reduces the damage that you take by 20% and increases the damage that you deal by 20%. So we're going to get much more into that when we talk about the talent build. Last Stand increases your health by 30% for 15 seconds and instantly heals you for that amount as well. So another survivability cooldown. Revenge. Now, Revenge is interesting because, like I talked about, you have your rage generators and you have your rage spenders. This is your offensive rage spender. So if they're not in execute range, right, and you don't actively need to be using your rage on shield block or ignore pain because you're doing just fine, you're not taking that much damage, well, you can use Revenge to dump your rage on your target, and it's just going to increase your damage. So another big thing about it is it spreads bleed. So Devastate puts deep wounds on your target, and Revenge puts deep wounds on all of your targets in front of you. So it's an AoE ability. It does a good amount of damage, and it puts deep wounds on your target, which is really important. Your successful dodge and parries have a chance to make your next revenge cost no rage. So you can essentially get a revenge proc, so you can use it for free. But I did read that you're only going to see about 2 or 3 of those procs a minute in the current build. Shield Wall is your number 1 survivability cooldown, reduces all damage you take by 40% for 8 seconds. Shockwave, it's a frontal cone stun, stuns all your targets in front of you within a 10 yard range for 2 seconds. Thunderclap blasts all enemies within 12 yards for physical damage and reduces their movement speed by 30% for 10 seconds. Deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. So that's another new thing. They don't really want you to be mass pulling trash packs anymore. That's why they're adding those damage caps at 5 targets. So this generates 5 rage. So you have your rage generators, again, are Shield Slam and Thunderclap. So those are the 2 abilities that you're going to use on cooldown whenever you can, because those are the things that are giving you more rage. Deep Wounds, it's a passive ability. Your Devastator and Revenge also cause the enemy to bleed for physical damage over 15 seconds. And this is Devastator. If you don't take Devastator, it's Devastate, and it's a single target ability that is basically your filler. If you don't have anything else to use, as far as your abilities go, you fill the global cooldowns with Devastates, hoping to get a Shield Slam proc. But we are using Devastator because Devastator, this talent makes Devastate your auto attack. So you no longer have that filler button, it's just your auto attack now. That also means that your auto attack has a chance to reset your Shield Slam timer. Mastery, it's your critical block, increases your chance to block and your chance to critically block twice the amount. Also increases your attack power. Riposte, you gain parry equal to 100% of your critical strike from gear. So if you get crit, fear not. If you're looking for like pure survivability, you're going to deal a little bit more damage when you do crit more, and you're also going to increase your parry rate with diminishing returns, of course. And then Hardened by Battle increases your stamina, and your armor is increased by 100% of your strength. So that's actually a buff from the last expansion. So moving on to secondary stats, in the pre-patch, while we're still in BFA, you're going to want to go with Haste Versatility, and pretty much nothing really matters after that. You can do Haste, Versatility, Mastery, Crit. That's going to be a really safe secondary stat priority. In Shadowlands, however, they are changing it up a bit with the secondary stats. So let's use Haste as an example. If you get 20% Haste, the next point of haste, the next percentage of haste that you get is going to cost you more. So basically, let's say if you have 25 haste on your gear, and this is an example, if you have 25 haste on your gear, that equals 1% of haste. But once you get to 20%, the next point to get to 21% haste is going to cost 35 haste on your gear. So it's going to become more expensive per percentage point of haste you get. What that means is I believe it'll be more beneficial to have a more evenly set of secondary stats. With that said, the stat priority moving into Shadowlands, I believe, will be item level first. So if it's a higher item level, the chances are it's going to be a better upgrade for you. And then you're going to have Haste as your close second, because Haste just does everything for us. It reduces the cooldown on our active mitigation like Shield Block. It reduces the cooldown on our rage generators like Shield Slam and Thunderclap. It increases the amount of rage we're going to generate, and it's going to make us do more damage and survive better. So Haste, and then it's going to be Versatility, Crit, and then Mastery. Okay, so again, it's in Shadowlands, it's going to be item level, Haste, Versatility, Crit, and then Mastery. Now on to the talents. This is one of 2 talent builds we're going to be talking about. So first of all, I just want to clarify, I recommended War Machine as an entry level into Shadowlands talent you can take, and while I still think that's true to an extent, it doesn't give you as much rage as I had previously thought. It gives you about 1 extra rage per auto attack, and then if you kill something, you generate the 10 rage. So what we're going to do is for both talent builds, actually, we're going to be using Devastator as our talent pick here. In the next tier, you have Double Time, which just gives you an extra charge, Rumbling Earth, which lowers the cooldown of your Shockwave if you hit 3 or more targets, and then Stormbolt, your single target stun. So if you don't need Rumbling Earth or Stormbolt, you just go with Double Time. Otherwise, you can use one of these. It's situational, so pick your poison. In the next talent tier, we're going to be going with Booming Voice. Demoralizing Shout also generates 40 rage and increases the damage you deal with Demoralizing Shout by 20%. We talked about that. So that's a very powerful DPS cooldown, as well as it gives you rage, so it increases your survivability there. Then in the next tier, you have Crackling Thunder. So this is a Thunderclap build. This is the Thunderclap spam build. So naturally, with that said, you're going to want to increase the radius of your Thunderclap so you can reach more people to deal damage. Then you also have Bounding Stride and Menace. Menace is very situational, like we talked about. In the next tier, the one that beats everything by a long shot is Indomitable. You have your maximum health is increased by 10%, so you just get 10% increased health across the board on your health meter, and every 10 rage you spend heals you for 1% of your maximum health. So basically, as you're playing any bit of combat and spending rage, you are going to be passively healing yourself just by spending rage. So it's like having a permanent hot on yourself while you're in combat. It's really nice. And then Impending Victory, I do like this still. This is Indomitable is gonna be your clear choice and give you more healing over time. But I just like Impending Victory because of the 10% healing increase it gave you, because it used to be 20%, now it's 30% every 30 seconds. It's like kind of, has a Death Knight feel. You can have that big heal when you need it, but it's on a 30-second cooldown. So Indomitable is going to come out in the lead, but I do still like Impending Victory. In this next tier for this build, we're going to use Unstoppable Force. It goes hand in hand with Booming Voice, and Avatar increases the damage of Thunderclap by 30 seconds and reduces its cooldown by 50%. Then you have Anger Management. Every 10 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown on Avatar and Shield Wall by 1 second. So the problem with this is they took Demoralizing Shout off of Anger Management, as well as Last Stand, but more importantly, Demoralizing Shout, which makes this build a little bit more clunky because you don't have Demoralizing Shout up as often. So here's the thing, though. If you look at the talents or the abilities, Demoralizing Shout is a 45-second cooldown, Avatar is a 1.1 minute cooldown, and I believe it's a 1.5 minute cooldown without Vision of Perfection, which is one of your essences that lowers the cooldown of Avatar. So at 1.5 minutes, and then Demoralizing Shout being 45 seconds, with Anger Management reducing the cooldown of Avatar as you spend rage, you're going to be able to use it, use those two things approximately every 45 seconds. So you'll still get that same powerful Thunderclap spam, albeit Thunderclap has been nerfed in its damage, but rightly so, it's justified. It was way overpowered, all of BFA. So that is an interesting thing. And then interesting even more, and I've talked about this in a previous video, let's see if I can find it, Thunderlord. So each enemy you hit with Thunderclap reduces the remaining cooldown on Demoralizing Shout by 3 seconds. So they just changed this actually today. I'm glad this video got delayed. They nerfed it, but that's honestly fine, because you would use Thunderclap on a group of like 4 or 5 mobs. This is a Shadowlands legendary, by the way. You would use Thunderlord, and then you would Thunderclap, and your Demoralizing Shout cooldown would be reduced by like 18 seconds or something, like 12 seconds. It was insane. So now it is every target you hit with Thunderclap reduces the Demoralizing Shout cooldown by 1.5 seconds up to 4.5 seconds. So when you use Thunderclap on an AoE pack in a dungeon, you're going to max, every Thunderclap is going to reduce the cooldown of Demoralizing Shout maxed out at 4.5 seconds. So I still think that's huge. It's still great. It's still a great legendary. I thought they would nerf it, and they did, and I still think it's going to be super powerful, and it's going to make this build incredibly viable and awesome in Shadowlands. Now on to the next build. Again, we're going to be taking Devastator, and Devastator has a bit more of a play in this talent build, and I'll explain why later. In the next tier, again, the same thing. If you're looking for more mobility, AoE stun, single target stun, pick your poison. And then here we're going to be using Dragon Roar. So Dragon Roar is just an AoE high damage dealing ability on a 30-second cooldown, and it generates 20 rage. So it's less rage than Booming Voice, but for this build we're going to be using Dragon Roar. It does very good AoE damage. In the next talent tier, Crackling Thunder is less important because Thunderclap is not as emphasized, but it's still going to be your best for getting threat and generating rage. Then we have Indomitable is still going to be our go-to in this talent build. And then down here, we move over and we switch it up a little bit. We're going to use Ravager. So personally, I just think using Ravager is a lot of fun. What it does is it throws down a whirling weapon at the target location, chases nearby enemies, inflicting physical damage up to 8 enemies over 9.4 seconds. And here's the really beneficial thing, is not only does it deal a lot of damage when you put it down, especially in an AoE pack while maybe popping Avatar, but it also generates 10 rage each time it deals damage. So while Ravager is ravaging your AoE trash pack, you are going to be able to use your shield block and just get free ignore pains left and right. So your survivability while Ravager is active, because of the amount of rage it gives you, is going to be incredibly high, because you're going to be able to keep ignore pain up 100% of the time. And then our next talent is Bolster, and that makes Last Stand's cooldown reduced by 1 minute, and it grants you shield block effect for its duration. So the way to play this properly is when you use, either you're using Last Stand because you're about to take a killing hit, or your health is getting incredibly low and you need to let the healer catch up, or you just want the extra shield block for a special ability. Let's say like that tree boss in Waycrest Manor, when he does his tank basher ability, and you don't have shield block up, you can pop Last Stand and now you have shield block up. But here's the thing, and do not make this mistake. If you use this talent, do not shield block while Last Stand is active, because you will just be wasting the time that you could be recharging your shield block while Last Stand is up. And it is a 15-second shield block when you take Bolster. So while that is happening, let your charges of shield block come back up. So when Last Stand ends and that shield block goes down, now you have, 1, almost 2 charges of shield block ready to go, right? So that's a long time of having shield block up without overlapping, because you're not benefiting anything from using shield block if your Last Stand is active with this talent taken. So now explaining Devastator. The reason Devastator is so important for this talent build is you have no need to use a filler, which means that you're going to have available global cooldowns to now add Dragon Roar and Ravager into your build, right? So you get a damage benefit from using Devastator. But if you have to manually hit that button and you're competing now with a global cooldown of hitting Devastator, trying to get a Shield Slam proc, or using Dragon Roar, that can be a little bit more tricky. But when Devastator becomes your auto attack, you are going to have free globals now where you can use and fill in with Dragon Roar and Ravager. With that said, Ravager and Dragon Roar basically want to be used on cooldown, unless you're finishing up the last mob in a trash pack when Ravager comes up and you're about to go to another trash pack. Save it for the big trash pack, right? But ideally you're going to use those abilities on cooldown, within reason. If you get a Shield Slam proc and you're trying to build rage, use your Shield Slam and then use your Dragon Roar, right? So that is the other talent build, and I think this will be very viable, especially when Shadowlands comes out and our haste is greatly reduced. I think this will feel better overall. And then when we get the Thunderlord Legendary, considering they don't nerf it more, which is possible, then we will switch to the other build with the Legendary. And we may even just switch to that build if that's what you prefer. I think both are viable. But I think this has a very good look in the current situation in the Shadowlands beta. So now on to Essences and Azerite, because it is still the pre-patch, so these things still apply. You want to make sure you have 1 Deafening Crash. You want to make sure you have Bastion of Might on all 3 pieces of gear. And then you want the other outer ring, the 2 outer rings, to be Heart of Darkness, and that is from the current raid Nyalotha. Overwhelming Power is good, and Passive Visage is good. And then click this button if you can, because it just increases your item level. For essences, you want your primary to be Vision of Perfection. Then for minors, you want Conflict and Strife, Memory of Lucid Dreams, and Aegis of the Deep. If you are just getting started with the Prot Warrior, don't spend too much time trying to get all of these, especially to rank 3. It's just frankly, I mean, unless you're trying to push something right now, it's just not worth your time because it's the pre-patch. You know, maybe get the base level of them and just leave it at that. Last but not least, we're going to be talking about the rotation or spell priorities. And the first thing to remember is whenever you are taking physical damage, you want to keep shield block up as much as you can. So again, your rage spenders are 3 different abilities. You have shield block, you have ignore pain, and you have your offensive rage spender, which is revenge. So shield block and ignore pain are your active mitigation. You want to keep them up as much as possible, and that should be your focus as especially a new Prot Warrior. Ignore pain, again, it reduces just total damage that you take, and shield block is physical melee damage that you take. So those are your rage spenders. Your rage generators are shield slam, thunderclap, and in this build, dragon roar. But just shield slam, thunderclap on cooldown, keep shield block up, keep ignore pain up, use dragon roar on cooldown, and use Ravager for big AoE packs or, you know, bosses whenever it's off cooldown. So what that could look like is you could put your Ravager down. Well, first you want to target an enemy, put Ravager down. As it's going down, you charge. Then you would thunderclap, shield block, shield slam, dragon roar, and at this point you're on your way. Now you're just rinsing and repeating. Now if you have a ton of rage and your shield block is already up, you already didn't ignore pain, but you don't want to cap on rage either. That is one of the biggest things you never want to do in these classes, is cap on rage, and now I'm generating rage and my rage bar is still full. So that's where revenge would really come in, right? You do want to use revenge anyway, at some point relatively early on, after you've got your active mitigation going and your shield slam and thunderclap are on cooldown. And the reason for that is because, again, going back to see all these targets have deep wounds on them from using revenge, and then you use revenge, it refreshes them. So you want to keep those bleeds up. It's a lot of extra damage that you're going to be doing. So another thing that I didn't do is I didn't pop Avatar, which is off the global cooldown now. So what you could do is you could again, target, use Ravager, charge in. While you're charging in, use Avatar, get your shield block, get your thunderclap, use dragon roar. And at this point, I'm already capped on rage, and I'm just going a little bit slow so I can explain. But again, the basics: keep shield block up, keep ignore pain up, dragon roar on cooldown, use thunderclap and shield slam on cooldown, use Ravager when you go into the pack, an AoE pack like that, or on cooldown if you need to, and again, save it if you're going to be having a larger pack or whatever and you only have a mob or 2 left. So then you also have your survivability cooldown. So demoralizing shout in the other build we talked about, if you've played Prot Warrior at all in BFA or Legion, you're familiar with the other build, right? That's not new, but demoralizing shout in this build is a defensive cooldown. You can pop that every 45 seconds. Shield wall is your just really big oh crap button for damage reduction, and then last stand increases your health, and in this build gives you shield block. So those are your 3 main survivability cooldowns, and let's not forget Spell Reflect if you're taking magic damage. And that is your primary rotation for the Prot Warrior. And again, you have all the other things. You have your Pummel, which is your interrupt, your Shockwave, which is your AoE stun, your Intimidating Shout, which is your fear, your execute button. So like we talked about when we were going over the Spellbook, if you're not dying, you're not worried about dying, and the boss or the mob is below 20% health, dump your rage on execute. It is a fun ability to use, and that's one of the things I really like about what I'm seeing in the Prot Warrior right now. Is there a fun ability just to use? We get execute back. That's fun to use. That's a rewarding button to hit. Same thing with Ravager. In this talent build, Ravager feels good to do. I mean, look at that. It just looks cool, and it does decent damage on top of it. So anyway, that is the rotation for the talent build. And with the other talent build, it's basically just a matter of popping Avatar and demoralizing shout, and then focusing Thunderclap every single time it's off cooldown, and that's the big change. Other than that, your rotation is the same. You just want to use your Demoralizing Shout and Avatar together, ideally, and then just Thunderclap and use Shield Slam and Revenge in your active mitigation the same. You just are prioritizing your Thunderclap ability because it's going to be up much more often with Unstoppable Force. So that is the rotation, essentially, or really the priority list of your spells. If you guys found this video helpful, please let me know and leave a like and a comment and subscribe and all that crap. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.